The EU has no business lecturing the UK on international law because it has ignored its own rules in the past, a Swiss politician has said in a spirited defense of Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Switzerland is gearing up for a referendum on its free movement deal with the EU on the 27th of September, which could have far-reaching consequences. Roger Copel, a member of the country's National Council, suggested that Benn needed to take a leaf out of London's book when it came to dealing with Brussels, highlighting Mr. Johnson's controversial plan to introduce the Internal Market Bill overriding some aspects of the withdrawal agreement. Mr. Copel, in an article for weekly magazine Weltwoche, of which he is editor-in-chief, wrote, "The media are raging. The left are fuming. Even in the conservative ranks they are howling. But Johnson, this brilliant poker player, only coolly cements his own position. It is true. It is most likely a breach of contract, but the EU has overruled its own treaties." Mr. Copel later said that France and Germany had both breached the EU regulations by taking on new debt, while the bailout of Greece in 2010 was also against the rules. In his column, Mr. Copel said, Johnson's original crime is that he made himself the mouthpiece of Brexit supporters. They never forgave him for that. The only thing worse was his promise to swiftly implement the people's decision to exit the EU. With this announcement, he achieved a landslide victory in the elections. Interestingly, Johnson is a particularly red rag for many Swiss media. The criticism is also fierce and poisonous because the British Prime Minister is much more hardline than the Federal Council. He is the opposite of our EU submissive government. Mr. Copel said, no one in Bern would come up with the idea of imitating the crazy Britain, even though they should look at him as a role model. Not only did he conjure up a free trade agreement with Japan, despite all the criticism that this would be impossible to do in such a short time. In dealing with the EU, Johnson provides a prime example of negotiating tactics. His aim is to checkmate the EU and to advance his own interests. Of course, Brussels has exactly the same goal. Mr. Copel contrasted the Prime Minister's approach to securing a withdrawal agreement last year with that of the previous occupant of number 10. He explained, Boris Johnson's predecessor Theresa May failed because she appeared to the EU in exactly the same way as Switzerland. There was something masochistic about her willingness to compromise. The result were bad deals, all of which were sunk by Parliament. May endured the defeats ironically, stoically, admirably. Johnson got on very differently. He put the EU under pressure. In no case will the UK accept a bad treaty. If Brussels is stubborn, they will leave the EU without a deal. With that he hit the weak spot. The EU needs a treaty, not least because it wants to prevent the British from throwing thousands of EU citizens out of the country if there is no contract. Mr. Copel conceded, Johnson's power bluff was successful. He got an agreement. It had serious disadvantages, a border with Northern Ireland, but it was a start. Turning his attention to this month's events, Mr. Copel said, he cheekily surprised everyone with an exit law that was in breach of the treaty and clarified the Northern Ireland question in the spirit of Great Britain. Brussels sees it as a declaration of war.